Can you hear us? Can you understand us? How long have you been listening to us for? Do you speak English? We'll be asking all these questions and more on this week's episode of the Ask an Alien Project. Join us, won't you? Hello et bonjour, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ask an Alien Project. The aim of our project is to create a repository of the questions that we as a species would like to ask of an extraterrestrial civilization if we could sit down and have a chat with them. Not just how fast does your spaceship travel or how does it work, but the sociological and historical ramifications of contact as well. Many prominent people in high former and current government positions have openly discussed the very real possibility that we are not alone in the universe, and have implied that we may soon find that out as a fact. Former US President Barack Obama said in a June 2021 interview, quote, "What is true, and I'm actually being serious here, is that there is footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't exactly know what they are." More recently, in November 2021, Bill Nelson, an Army veteran, former senator, and ex-astronaut who is the current director of NASA, the National Aeronautical and Space Administration, commented on the unidentified aerial phenomenon, also known as UAP. Director Nelson is convinced that U.S. naval aviators saw something unidentifiable and their radars locked onto it. When asked to speculate about the nature of the phenomenon, Nelson responded, quote, "Who am I to say that planet Earth is the only location of a life form that is civilized and organized like ours?" As we get closer and closer to full disclosure about the actual existence of non-human intelligences, we had better get ready to ask the questions that we as a species want to have answers to. In order to have these conversations, though, we must first figure out just how exactly would that communication take place. According to the best research we currently have, the answer varies from super easy to extremely complicated. So let's start with the low-hanging fruit, as they say. So the first communications method that's super easy is telepathy. We've heard reports of alien abductions for decades now. While the abductions themselves have never been conclusively proven as factual or ruled out as a hallucination, there is one constant theme running through all of them: telepathic communications. Many people who report being abducted by extraterrestrial beings report that they receive telepathic messages such as, "You will be fine," and "Please be calm." Some report being taken on tours of alien spacecraft and were able to understand what was being communicated to them. What we need, though, is a measurable and researchable incident of telepathic discourse. There is at least one specific and researchable incident of telepathic interactions that we can investigate in detail. In the famous 2004 USS Nimitz Incident with the tic-tac-shaped UAP, Commander David Fravor of the U.S. Navy reported that after his engagement with the Tic Tac, the craft suddenly vanished, only to reappear many kilometers away at their cap point, which was the exact meeting point the crew was next going to fly to in their training mission. This is remarkable because the exact location of this prearranged meet point was only known to Commander Fravor, his wingman Lieutenant Dietrich, their weapons officers, and their commanders back on board the ships. So if these craft are extraterrestrial in origin, and their occupants can read our thoughts, or maybe even send thoughts to us, then this would be the simplest possible means of communication, period. The sharing of ideas and information can begin right away. The next easy method would be speech. We've had rumors and myths about contact with sky people and other otherworldly beings for thousands of years. If true, they must have been able to communicate with us somehow. If an extraterrestrial species has the ability to observe us, learn our language structure, and mimic our speech, either directly or through a piece of technology, then we could start chatting right away. Well, how would they know our language, you might ask? Well, we've been broadcasting radio signals into space since the 1900s and television signals since the 1930s. Seth Shostak, director of the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence Institute, also known as SETI, commented that he and many other researchers defines intelligent life as a being who can build a radio. Humans only accomplished that around 1900. That means that our radio signals could only have traveled up to 116 light years away, creating a bubble, so to speak, around the Earth, announcing that we're here. If there's any aliens inside this bubble, they might know about Homo sapiens, he said. Linguist Karen Rice posits that basic communication between humans and aliens should be possible unless the things that we think are common to languages, situating in time and space, talking about participants, etc., unless those things are so radically different that the human language provides no starting point for it. Activities as simple as watching children's television shows could give an extraterrestrial insight into basic language learning, and they've had plenty of time to study. As far as which language any aliens might be able to speak, Hollywood movies have always implied that aliens could speak English. While it's true that English is the most widely spoken language on Earth, other languages aren't far behind. So it's just as possible that they might prefer to learn Mandarin Chinese, especially if the pictographic nature of written Chinese is easier for them to understand for whatever reason. And besides, if they really wanted to learn about our history, art, and culture, they learn French. So the third form of communication starts to get a little more difficult. This would be non-aligned speech mechanics and xenolinguistics. So let's say the alien visitors have learned our language patterns and want to try to speak with us. To find out if that's possible, we need to learn a bit about how humans generate speech. We need respiration, phonation, and articulation to pull it off. Speech is produced by bringing air in from the lungs to the larynx, where the vocal folds may be held open to allow the air to pass through, or may vibrate to make a sound. The airflow from the lungs is then shaped by the articulators in the mouth and nose. So, to make speech sounds for any human language, you need exhalation of air, vocal cords, and all the mouth and nasal structures needed to make human speech elements, such as a tongue, teeth, nasal passages, lips, roof of mouth, back of mouth, etc. If the alien visitors lack some or all of these characteristics, they would be unable to produce the sounds necessary for most, if not all, human languages. It's conceivable that some human languages may be easier to pronounce than others, such as Spanish, where every consonant and vowel is pronounced, as opposed to, say, Arabic, which is particularly rich in uvular and pharyngeal sounds. We have examples of this difficulty here on Earth. We know that there are some creatures that have forms of communications that could be considered languages, but with which we can't communicate directly due to the physical linguistics issues. Some of these creatures are orca whales, dolphins, and gorillas and other primates. For orca whales, we know that they have a form of language, and their communication varies greatly depending on where in the world they live. Some of the first evidence of cultural differences amongst orcas came from studies of vocalizations in whales that frequent the coastal waters of British Columbia and Washington State. Such residents belong to 4 clans, each with multiple groups. While the clans live close together, their ranges even overlap, their vocalizations are as different as Greek and Russian. The smaller groups, known as pods, have dialects akin to a southern drawl or a clipped New England accent. In the case of dolphins, we know that research is being conducted to see if their high-pitched whistling type sounds could be interpreted and analyzed as a language. More than 80 cultures, for example Turkish, still use whistled language to communicate over long distances by simplifying words, syllable by syllable, into whistled melodies. Researchers are trying to decode how bottlenose dolphins communicate. These are highly social mammals, with the second largest brain relative to their body size after humans. So, to gain insight on their communications, scientists are leveraging insights from studies looking at how human whistled speech is structured and organized. The problem is, We've been studying these creatures and their speech for decades, and we still can't ask them how their day's going. For gorillas and other primates, we've been able to communicate with them for decades using a rudimentary sign language or computer interaction. Sign language and computer keyboards are used in primate language research because non-human primate vocal cords can't close fully, and they have less control of the tongue and lower jaw. However, primates do possess the manual dexterity required for keyboard operation. It's now generally accepted that apes can learn to sign and are able to communicate with humans. However, it's disputed as to whether or not they can form syntax to manipulate such signs. The other problem with this is that humans and primates are both learning from a human-centric point of view linguistically. That is to say, we're trying to teach them our concepts of language, which may be completely inconsistent with an extraterrestrial view on language. An extraterrestrial may also have a poor grasp of context. For example, we might show them a picture of a hammer. Do we mean that this is a tool, a weapon, or an important religious symbol in our culture? Almost every house has a hammer. What's it used for? Therefore, sign language or image-based communication might be a good place to start when communicating with aliens, if other means are unsuccessful. Yet, there's no guarantees of success, and deeper understanding is complex. So, for our extraterrestrial perspective, it's not just that there's physical differences. There could easily be cultural or regional variations in their own communications, meaning we would have to learn multiple different forms of alien communications to be able to communicate with different alien groups or different alien species. Some even more complicated communications methods, for example, would be light. Similar to Morse code, we could show them a series of flashing colors and lights and hope that the extraterrestrials have great pattern recognition skills. Yet, they might not understand it if they don't process information sequentially in the same way we do. What's more, there's no guarantee that they process light in the same manner we do. Many animals on Earth see things in the ultraviolet spectrum that we simply cannot. Music. It has similar issues as with light. Could be helpful, maybe even beautiful. But what if an alien can't hear in the same audible range as humans can? Even dogs can hear sounds that humans simply cannot. Math is the preferred communications method for radio communications with an extraterrestrial civilization dating back to the 1970s. But our mathematics is all designed around base 10 for our fingers. What if their math is base 6 or base 29? Math might help us understand the scientific aspects of distance, velocity, trajectory, etc., but math can't tell us if an extraterrestrial feels warm, if they're happy, who their leader is, or if they're capable of love. And finally, we have extremely complicated communications, such as vibration communications. Spiders sense their vibrations across their web to help them interpret their environment. Another would be chemical communications, such as ants in an ant colony, or bees in a beehive, using chemical signals to accomplish tasks or to send warnings. So the question would be, how on earth would we reproduce those types of communications? Well, if someone's doing research out there in this field of study, please let us know. So if we assume that one or more of the easier communications methods works, here's some of the language-based questions we'd like to ask an alien. Can you hear us? Can you understand us? How long have you been listening to us for? Can we talk to you? What language do you speak? What languages of ours do you speak? Does your language have regional dialects? Does everyone on your planet speak the same language? Or are there multiple languages as there are here on Earth? Do you write? What does your language look like in written form? Do you know of any other intelligent species? And can you communicate with them? Speaking of research, if you're working in this field, we'd like to learn from you and help you amplify your work to a broader audience. Please feel free to contact us directly or in the comments below. Also, in addition to the usual asking for people to like and subscribe, which is a really good idea as we're just getting started, please let us know what questions you would want to ask an alien if you could sit down and have an interview with them. So thank you et merci, and we'll see you next time on the Ask an Alien project.